I truly believe that Disney doesn't want us to watch The Acolyte. It seems that every time that the showrunner, Leslye Headland, opens her mouth and talks about Star Wars and talks about the type of show that The Acolyte is going to be, more and more I'm just like, this show really isn't for me. It's just not. And see, here's the thing. I have to explain this first, okay? Because I have to be very careful as to how I explain this so people don't get the wrong idea. So every so often, my wife is watching the Kardashians, right? Or she's watching this reality TV show about love, on an island or something along those lines. And she asked me if I'm interested in watching it. And most of the time the answer is no. Hell no. I am not interested in watching that because it is not for me. It's not catered for me. And when I keep listening to what Leslye is saying that her show, the Star Wars show, is going to be The Acolyte, what it's going to be, I'm just like, this show isn't for me. And quite frankly, I don't think it's for Star Wars fans. In a recent interview, this is what she stated. When I was a young queer girl, I was just hanging out with Ursula in the sea from The Little Mermaid. She told the outlet, as a queer girl growing up, if you don't identify with the heroes and the villains show up and they're queer coded, you're like, yes, that's me. Helen added, as a queer filmmaker, you're going to see some camp, but I would say that tonally our references are darker. And what Leslye is saying, what I'm getting from this interview is that she's going to make The Acolyte into a queer campy show. I mean, is that what she's trying to say? She's trying to say, well, I'm queer and, of course it's going to be campy and it's going to be queer coded. What does queer coded mean? Queer coding is the subtextual coding of a character in media as queer, though such a character's sexual identity may not be explicitly confirmed within their respective work, or they may in fact be straight despite their queer mannerisms. A character might be coded as queer through the use of traits and stereotypes recognizable to the audience. Such traits are generally varied, but traits of exaggerated masculinity and femininity, vanity, and hypersexuality are frequency. See, here's the thing, man, and I 100% believe this. I truly do believe that people of that community do deserve some representation. They do deserve their own shows, and quite frankly, maybe they should be like in Star Wars, and that's fine. But can we make them, how can I put this? Can we just put them in naturally? Can we put these people in naturally to where it's not the main focus? It just happens to be what they are. Like every other character in every other medium. Let's look at The Last of Us, that episode where Ron Swanson had a boyfriend, and they had that beautiful life together, and we all saw how it ended. I don't think anybody was talking shit about The Last of Us having gay or queer, whatever they were, characters. Nobody was saying anything bad. I love that episode. That's one of my favorite episodes in that entire series because it fits so well. It was so well done. And I think that you could do the same thing with The Acolyte. You can do the same thing with Star Wars, but when you make it into the main focus of the TV show, that's when people have a problem with it. Listen, here's the thing. And this is going back to what I was saying about I'm not interested in watching shows like The Kardashians or Love Island or all these other shows. It's just not for me. And the more that she describes this show, the more that Leslye describes The Acolyte, the more I'm beginning to think that this show just isn't for me. And I'm not gonna continue talking bad about this show because I am sure there's some people out there that are gonna love this show, But as far as me, as far as real Star Wars fans, I don't see us liking this show. I really don't. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the type of show that she wants to make. I'm not going to bash that because I'm sure it's going to have an audience, clearly. I don't think it's going to be as big of an audience as, say, if she was going to just make a good story, focus on just Star Wars and leaving all that political stuff, just leaving it all out. I think you would have gotten a bigger audience. But with her going for the super political and inserting queer coding, and what else did she say? She was going to make it campy. It's not for me. More and more, I'm beginning to believe that Star Wars is just it's not for me anymore. It's just not for me. It's not for real Star Wars fans. I think that there is definitely a clear division in the fandom right now. I think that like 90% of Star Wars fans are like George Lucas's Star Wars prequels, original trilogy, Clone Wars, all that stuff, most of Dave Filoni's stuff, season 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian. Like that's That is like OG Star Wars. That's good Star Wars. That's classic Star Wars, right? And this new Star Wars, this Disney Star Wars, this is just like, it's something different. It's just something different. And the best way I can describe it is, I think in the early 90s, Coca-Cola redid their formula and they called it New Coke, right? This is it right here. And the flavor wasn't the same. It just didn't hit the same, you know? And eventually sales plummeted. People hated it. No one was buying it. And they reverted back to classic Coke. That's why you've noticed they, for a brief time, they started adding classic Coca-Cola because they eventually went back to classic Coke. You know, and I truly do hope that we'll get to the day where we'll get back to classic Star Wars. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And like always, don't forget to subscribe. Do it. Sensational.